So this video is going to be a very off-the-cuff type deal. I'm in front of the bookcase. I know I usually go to the couch for that kind of thing, but I'm looking at my couch right now and it looks like a battlefield. So we're not going to do that. Today I just spontaneously had the inkling to talk about something that I know my audience cares about a lot. I mean, many people in my audience do. I care about it a lot. It's the topic of depression, right? Depression not just in the mood, feeling blue type way, but also in the clinical way. It is no secret, I do not make it a secret, that I am diagnosed with chronic depression. It's cyclical, it's not a permanent depression, but it is a chronic depression, it is a chronic cycle that repeats. I feel like a lot of people often don't understand that they think when people are chronically depressed, they are always depressed. And I'm sure some people are always depressed, and that really is a horrible fate that I'm happy that I don't have that. I mean, I would be happy if I wasn't in the middle of a depressive phase, because right now I just don't, it's just sort of not a thing that I care about at all. I'm making this video so whenever you're depressed, even whenever I'm depressed in the future, I will be able to look at it and see that the person who's talking to me is the person that is me while I am depressed. Because I do sort of change personalities when I'm depressed. I become very, very brash, I become very abrasive, I become aggressive. I become a bit of more of a recluse. I don't want to talk to anyone at all. Anything becomes stressful, even small things, or especially things that I usually enjoy, because I have turned over the past few years into a bit of a workaholic, and I really enjoy just doing work, right? Doing work that I enjoy doing. But with depression, the thing is not necessarily that you just feel bad. That does happen. That does happen a lot, but it doesn't happen in my case. It does happen sometimes in my case, but most of the time it's just this extreme lack of joy in anything at all. And what many people don't understand, especially people who do have depression and are surrounded by people who don't understand this, is that depression is a real physical thing that you can measure, right? It's not there's this misconception that diseases of the mind is a bit of a harsh term, but like when there's something wrong with your head, that's all in your head. But we tend to forget that our head functions on a physical level. There's neurons firing in there, and there's hormones going on all around the fucking place, right? And what depression is essentially, in most cases, a hormonal imbalance, right? Where there's an overproduction of hormones that make you be depressed, because you need both of them if you're balanced, or an underproduction of hormones that make you feel good, possibly both. So that's why when you're doing a thing that you would usually enjoy doing, you just don't enjoy it, because the response that your brain normally gives, which is, oh, we enjoy doing this, let's put out some oxytocin and whatever the fuck other happiness hormones in such situations are released, it'll just go, nah, don't have any of that. So what you have is real. It's not something that only exists in your head. I mean, it does only exist in your head, but a brain tumor would also exist in your head. And nobody would go about saying, oh, the brain tumor isn't real, it's only in your head. So I feel like people, and there is, I think that a lot of mental health issues, people are becoming more aware of it, and people are beginning to treat them like they are genuine disabilities. And people always say that, oh, there's this there's a lot more depressed people and a lot more burnt out people and whatever today than there ever have been. And I do agree, but I think the margin by which there are many more of them isn't as extreme as many people think. Back in the day, we just didn't used to recognize these things as much. I mean, there are records of people with depression back in the Greek city-states, the Roman Empire, right? There are people writing about people who have melancholia, it was called in the medieval period in many areas. So this is a known phenomenon, but at the same time, we live in the most stressful period of time in human history. Because even if you're in a survival situation, your brain works properly, right? In a survival situation, you always sort of know that there is a physical thing you can do to, better your situation. But in today's world, we have a lot of, it's all very immaterial. It's not very concrete. It has a degree of abstraction, and it moves with a type of speed that just isn't found in nature. And over time, because it never slows down, over time it just wears you down, and things like these happen, or hormonal imbalances like these happen. But luckily, we are gaining a sort of awareness about this thing. Another thing that is the case with my personal depression is that in the second half of my depressive phases, usually what happens is I start feeling immense guilt, and I've actually learned to take this guilt and sort of run with it and pour it into productivity. That's a very unhealthy thing to do, right? I am aware that this is not a good thing to do, and I do not know if it improves my condition or if it makes it worse or if it has no effect on it whatsoever. But I do know that it's an unhealthy behavior, and I mean, my therapist has told me this. But I still do it because I become very productive. This is how I know that I am now entering the second half. I am in the middle of my depressive phase, because the urge to make this video was, oh shit, you haven't done anything for the YouTube channel in 2 days. Oh my God, how horrible. You need to do something right now. That is part of the impetus that led me to even put up the camera right now. And even speak extemporaneously, because I wouldn't have the energy to actually script something, and I wouldn't have the passion for any topic that would allow me to write a script on that topic that would in any way have the same momentum and reflect the same love for the work that I do on YouTube than maybe this video. Right now, the depression and people being depressed is the only thing I care about. And here's the thing. If you are depressed, and especially if you're depressed right now, there's a couple things that I often find I need to remind myself of, so I will do you the courtesy of reminding you of those very same things. Most important thing, this is the most important thing, you will get through it. The depressive phase will eventually stop. Sometimes when I feel depression going on, I write a note and I put it next to my keyboard, and that note says, you will get through it. Because you will. The depressive phase will eventually end. Your brain's going to notice, oh shit, we haven't been producing any oxytocin, or oh shit, we've got way much of that bad shit, and then things are going to go back into gear, right? I don't know how long your depressive phases are. I know that there's people for whom they last several months, but I think that is extremely rare. Mine usually last for a week or two. Sometimes they're much shorter. I have had depressive phases that were like 4 days, which going into therapy has helped me a lot, which is why I would highly recommend all of you, if you do have a problem, seek professional help. And seek professional help. If you can't get any other professional help, get it from a psychiatrist. That's okay. But try to find a psychotherapist, because the difference between psychiatrists and psychotherapists is that psychiatrists are people with a medical degree who did some courses and some extra education that allow them to understand psychology and do psychology. They're trained psychologists, right? That have experience and are trained to have a practice. But the thing is that psychiatrists will often just find out what's wrong with you and then prescribe you some medicine, and then you have to take pills. And I know that I don't want to knock anyone who takes pills to get over their depression. I think it's a legitimate way of getting over it. It's sometimes there is no cure for it, and they are the best cure, right? It's good. However, psychotherapists are people who from the beginning, I don't think psychotherapists actually have a medical degree, but psychotherapists are people who from the beginning of their advanced education are trained exclusively and with an extreme focus on helping people with mental issues. It's, with all kinds of mental issues, be it depression, be it schizophrenia, all of those things, right? That's what a psychotherapist does. So if you go to a psychotherapist, and I am at a psychotherapist, it's my therapist. There's not a lot of psychiatrists in Germany. I feel like in America that will be the other way around. You have a surplus of psychiatrists, but I don't know if that's true. It certainly feels like it. So what a psychotherapist will do is they will actually try to not fix the symptoms of your issue. They will try to find the root causes for your problems and then help you with that by a huge variety of means that I don't understand enough about the subject to even give you a broad overview of the amount of means that they use. But they use a lot of them. They have a big toolbox. So if you are in this situation, please, please, please do go seek professional help. And you can wait until you're less depressed to do it, because it is sometimes a monumental task. But you will get through it. And at that point, write a note right now to remind your non-depressed self to actually go ahead and find yourself a therapist or a psychiatrist. And if the people around you tell you, or if you are of the opinion that depression is not a real thing, just know that you are factually incorrect. I mean, that you are just medically wrong. It's like telling a depressed person to just be happy, right? That's a little bit like telling a person in a wheelchair, like a quadriplegic or a paraplegic, to just walk. If they just try hard enough, they will be able to do it. And unfortunately, that's just not the world we live in. If you're a paraplegic, you can't just walk if you try hard enough. You cannot overcome the physical barriers that are in place. And as we've already established, depression is a physical thing. We don't entirely understand it, but there also used to be a time where we didn't entirely understand even Newtonian physics. And then we did, and it was Newtonian physics, even though we didn't know it as such. I mean, we understood a lot of Newtonian physics before it was known as Newtonian physics, of course, but the natural laws were a thing before we understood them, is what I'm trying to say. So don't feel bad about being the way you are, because you just are the way you are, and that is all right. Much like, paraplegics need to be sort of taken care of in a way, so should we sort of respect that depressed people have a real problem, right? I don't want you to treat me like someone who can't handle anything, right? Treat me as a regular person. Because I know that most paraplegic, I don't know a single I don't know a lot of paraplegics, but all the paraplegics that I have known through my life, which is not many, not a single one of them said, please treat me like a paraplegic. Treat them like people, right? This is something that all disabled people, you should treat them like it. Treat them like they're regular people, but respect and maybe make some small concessions. Think about the fact that they do have these problems, right? Because they learn and they deal and they are completely powerful members of society. I think that honestly, being depressed is not quite as bad as being a paraplegic. Especially because being a paraplegic is often accompanied by depression, at least in the early phases. For some that persists in your entire life. But as far as being a disability, it's just as legit, if not as severe. So don't feel bad. Don't feel bad for being depressed. Don't feel bad for just not being able to get out of bed today. That's a physical thing. It is okay. You will get to a point where you will be able to get out of bed. It's cool. It'll work eventually. And as you get more experience, and especially if you get professional help, you will become better at dealing with depression. I have come to the point where I can function even when I am depressed. I have come to the point where most of my depressive phases, because I have been in therapy, even for just a couple months, right, have become much less severe. They're still about as frequent, but they have become much less severe. It's like, oh, I'm feeling blue today, and ooh, I have a little bit of trouble getting out of bed in the morning, as opposed to what was the case like a couple years ago, where I just couldn't do anything. I would just lie in bed for 2 hours, collecting the energy to be able to even roll off the couch, because I didn't even sleep in my bed back then, because it was just too much work to walk from my desk to my bedroom. I would just sleep on the couch. That was the situation I was in. And I would drag myself to the computer, and I would sometimes just turn it on and sit in front of it for hours and do nothing. I would just stare at the desktop because I was unable to even move my hand to my mouse. And that situation has gotten drastically better over the years, and especially in the last couple of months. I learned how to get out of that hole on my own. It only happened like a handful of times, so that wasn't like a permanent installment of the Gideon exposition, right? There was something that happened, and then it stopped happening, and I thought, oh shit, I hope that never happens again. And then I did nothing about it, but eventually, with friends, social life, my girlfriend and all that, it did help sort of improve that. But the most improvement that I have had was ever since I have entered therapy. This is why I recommend you enter therapy. This is a very important thing. First of all, don't feel guilty, you will get over it, and get therapy when you are over it. And I know that a lot of you you're not going to feel it. I'm trying to give you these positive vibes, which I don't know where I would be taking them from. I have no positive vibes anywhere around here, right? I'm just trying to maybe fake them. Because that is actually something that helps. Fake it till you make it is actually a real psychological phenomenon. So if you do this, and you just smile, then there is your body eventually is going to notice, holy shit, we're smiling. So if we're smiling, there must be some good coming on. But there's nothing, we don't have any good input. But we're smiling, so let's just go ahead and produce some oxytocin anyway. Who gives a shit? We're smiling, that's the response. I don't give a fuck. That's basically what's going to happen. That is what happens often. I won't guarantee you that it'll work. I won't guarantee you that it'll work the first time you do it, but it is certainly something that you can try. It might just alleviate your pain a little bit. And these are just the things that you will learn to do in order to be able to deal with your depression better. And some of them you will find out, some of them your therapist will tell you, don't worry about it, okay? Don't have to sort any of that out right now. You can sort it out later. I'm just telling you that this is what will happen, and it will happen naturally, just like any other thing that you've learned, it will work, right? Another thing that I want to talk about is that there is this misconception that depressed people, this is something that comes with all mental health things, but especially with depressed people, is that they are somehow mentally weak. And the fact of the matter is that the opposite is the case, right? Depressed people go through these absurd, painful, horrible experiences on the regular for no reason at all. For some reason, for some people, there's triggers for depression. Other people like me, they just happen, and I could be on the top of my game, the best person in the world, a great day, get up the next morning completely depressed. That just happens. Like there's things where it acts as a sort of trigger. It improves the depression, right? I would have become depressive anyway, but maybe I got depressive a day earlier because something happened. Or maybe I would get depressive a day later because something good happened, right? But the depression comes. And the fact that we suffer through this, right? We suffer through this on the regular, and we suffer through this for extended periods of time. And we always make it out on the other. Some of us don't make it out on the other side. But that doesn't mean that they're weak. That means that they've been exposed to more pain than other people. People with chronic depressions tend to be the strongest motherfuckers I know. The people with the greatest emotional reserves. Because that is something that needs to happen. You need to fatten up on your emotional reserves if you have depression. That's something that'll just it's like when you lift a lot of weights. Your muscles will get bigger. When you get depressed, you will build up greater emotional reserves that will help you get through your depression and that will help you get through life. Hardship does make stronger people. However, depression is still bad. We don't want people to be depressed. We don't want people to be bad, to feel bad. There's a certain amount of hardship that I feel like is okay, that I feel like people need. But if you're at a point where you're depressed, it's too much. That is, you have been exposed to too much hardship. And depression, don't look at your life and think, where's all the hardship in my life? Because the thing with depression is that it can sometimes be created by completely intangible hardship, right? I have never hungered, right? I've never gone hungry in my life. I know people who have. I haven't. I was lucky that way. Yes, I had a problematic childhood. I grew up in a boys' home, but there's a lot of people who have it a lot worse than I do. And many of them are not depressed. Don't let that kind of thing make you feel guilty or make you feel as though your depression was not as legit as the depression of other people or the non-depression of other people. Because it is legit. The fact that it is there makes it legit, and you do not need to have experienced hardship for depression to set in. You could be wildly successful. I mean, a lot of the most successful people in the world are depressed, right? The Robin Williamses and the Bourdains, and both of them eventually killed themselves. But there's George Clooney suffers from George Clooney suffers from chronic depression. That's just a reality of his life. And for many, that depression does make them stronger. The power that you gain from being depressed, the emotional reserves, will help you get through periods where you are not depressed with much more power. So do not think that you are weak. Don't. Anyway, I don't know, I don't have a point for this video. I just really felt the urge to do something for myself and to tell people, my dudes, or not dudettes. Is that a thing? I think it is a thing. You'll get through it. Stay with me. If you're trying to hurt yourself, call professional. People will help you. Call some lines, just put into Google, suicide hotline. 100%. You can even put the English word suicide hotline into whatever country you live in, and Google is going to translate that for you. They're on top of their game when it comes to that. Get some help. Don't feel guilty about this. Yeah, that's basically it. I'm sure the moment that I stop recording and start editing, 1,000 things will pop into my head. You could have said this, you could have said this, you could have said this, you could have said, you fucking piece of shit. You're very bad at doing all this. You're not going to help anyone. People are going to kill themselves because of this video. I just expect this now. And you will eventually also learn to expect it and to anticipate it and be able to deal with it, much like you would be able to deal with an attack. If you imagine the depression, it's no surprise that they did imagine depressions as demons back in the day. Because it's easy to picture them as such. They are demons, they are part of your mind that wants to pull you down. And you will live through them because they don't have quite as much power over you as you think they do. So yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. Do the things. I don't even... See you around, cunts.
Do you like your new toy?